One minute early, but I think we've waited long enough. I think we'll start now. Have you seen any apologies, Lynn?
Apologies received from Councillor Shelley Powell, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Meeting on the 13th of September 2017 and meeting on the 25th of October 2017. Do you agree that there are two records and I sign them both off? Thank you. Any declarations of interest?
Two personal interests on agenda item 4 from Councillors Connor and Morgan, and 4 disclosable pecuniary interest declared for agenda item 8 from yourself, Councillors Connor, Lily and C.
We'll have to leave the room with that one, won't we? Okay, thank you very much. Non-key decisions then, item 3, corporate plan management update. Mike, I believe you're bringing this to us today.
I am, Chair, thank you. Very interesting report, a very welcome report actually, as regards of what we planned out in 2015 and 2017, our aims for the future. It's quite a long 20 pages actually. But on the first page, we've got 5 items that summarised for the report to maximise the council's contribution to education in Knowsley, maximise the council's contribution to the health and well-being of Knowsley residents, and provide high quality and sustainable adult social care, and accelerate business growth and new jobs in housing, and create a sustainable borough. And we've made great progress, as you can see from the report. I would like to highlight just a few paragraphs contained in the report. As regards education, we appointed a new Assistant Chief Executive for Education, and we're taking the position up in January. And this will be linked to the independent support to education improvement offered by another one of our policies, which is the Education Commission, which is going quite well. So this Assistant Executive Director post will drive it forward, and this improves our ambitions and for the education outcomes for young people in Knowsley. And also, which is a great fillip for Knowsley, from September 2018, the newly merged Knowsley and St Helens Community College will provide A-level provisions for our children in Knowsley. Going on to the improved health and well-being, which is quite high on the agenda. And the council, we've transformed, and it's transformed social care so that our residents can access these services at the right time, the need at the right time. And in collaboration with our partners, the council has developed an early intervention prevention scheme of work which will help to ensure that people are able to live healthy and independent lives. Very important. And the council's public health and safety communities have worked with our partner agencies to develop and agree a domestic abuse action plan, which is high on everybody's agenda at the moment. And work is underway to improve the support available to victims and to children who have witnessed domestic abuse. I would say high on the agenda. The next item highlights achieve high quality and sustainable social care, and quite proud. On July 17, this cabinet has approved a number of actions to make Knowsley a dementia-friendly borough by 2020. I'm proud to say the elected members will play a key role in achieving this as community champions and achieving its aims. And another positive, the council is delivering extra care housing strategy to meet the needs of our ageing population and reduce the need, which is quite important, reduce the need for residential and nursing placements. 5 extra care schemes are currently available to our residents, providing over 300 units in total, with a number of additional schemes on the way. Next highlight is to accelerate business growth and jobs in housing. Obviously, we are continuing to bring significant investments to Knowsley Borough. I'll give you 3 examples, which everyone knows about. Examples: Kirby Morrison's superstore opening in Kirby soon. 200 jobs will be created. The Shakespeare of the North is a high profile across the country, and that's been before the planning committee, and we'll be seeing progress there from now on. And the progress has been made against the delivery of Holsmead Garden Village, and approved a place at a pace of £30 million of external funding bids submitted to support the scheme. So, by progress on to create a sustainable borough. Great play was made on as regards social value the past few years as regards this council. So significant progress has been made embedding social value into our contracts. Last year, 65% of the contracts let contained social value. So this is progression of work, and we're leaving it wider in the coming years. Of course, the delivery of the priorities have got to be underpinned by an effective budget strategy. And need I say, it's an extremely challenging and financial environment today with this central government lack of funding. And the Council will continue to ensure that it delivers service in the most affordable and effective way, as promised. And the Council is making good progress in a number of significant redesign projects. I'll start that one again. The Council is making good progress in a number of significant service redesign projects to achieve service sustainability through new delivery models or shared arrangements. In conclusion, colleagues, it's a good report. And also, in other areas of the Council, Council's delivery, we have to be more imaginative how we deliver the best service for all our residents. We can't afford to carry on losing millions of pounds from our central government the way we would want to carry on. We were elected to make sure that we provide the best service to our residents. And this update enables us to continue the best use of our limited resources to deliver possible positive outcomes for our residents. And I move the recommendations on page 11.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Any questions or observations? No? Do we agree that report? Okay, thank you. Key decisions, shaping a new future for Knowsley Parks, the report of the Knowsley Parks and Green Spaces Review Board. Gideon, can I introduce you at this point, pages 31 to 68. Thanks, Gideon. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Councillor Moorhead. I hope you don't mind if I stand. It feels I should do somehow, so I will if you don't mind. It's been an enormous privilege to have been chairing the board for this last 8-month period we've had. I'm delighted to be able to present you our double tome and a summary as well of our work. I'm doing this really on behalf of the members of the review board. A number of them are here this evening. I'm delighted to see you're able to get here with us. The members of the board have included borough councillors, included parish councillors, have included members of friends groups, colleagues involved in parks, allotments, beekeeping, colleagues with a great passion for the environment. We've had academics, we've had people from the private sector, and we've had people with a great knowledge of the environment, some real national experts, including my Vice Chair, Paul Nolan, who has not been able to get here this evening, but he's an expert in his own right, as well as being Vice Chair. So I want to thank all the colleagues very, very much for their lot of hard work that's gone into this report. And I also want to pay tribute to the council officers. Rupert Casey, Caroline Holmes, done a fantastic job supporting us, and I'd like to thank John Flaherty very much as well for his senior level advocacy. When we started this journey 8 months ago, I think we weren't quite sure where it was going to end. We started off, I think we didn't necessarily know each other, but we found early on that what we did share was a passion for the environment, passion for the parks, green spaces, places for health and well-being, for education, for forest schools, places to enjoy with your family, a walk, take the children to the swings, run, jog, play football, whatever. We all started off sharing that this is a fantastic asset and resource for Britain to have a great range of parks and green spaces. Most important asset, we felt. And then we were able early on to understand fully the great assets that you have here in Knowsley. We found that actually you have more parks and green spaces per head of population than most places in the country. And we found out that actually the quality of your parks and green spaces is really absolutely outstanding. 18 green flag parks, parks and green spaces that you as elected members have invested enormous amount in recent years. A great tribute to yourselves as members, I think to your officers, to your workforce, and to members of the community who've helped to maintain these parks at the great level and quality that they're at. And we were deeply impressed to understand what you've done in those. But we're also fully aware of the risks now that you're facing, not just you here, but across the country, the enormous risks and dangers to our parks and green spaces. And this is a national issue. All across the country, local authorities are grappling with the fact that they no longer have the funding to maintain the parks and green spaces to the quality that they should be, and the danger of the deterioration of parks and green spaces. Going back to where things were in Knowsley some years ago, before you put in an enormous amount extra, this could easily fall back. Without the security of council revenue funding, there's the danger that the parks would fall into disrepair, would be closed, would become antisocial, unsafe places. And that's the real concern that we had in coming into this. And we know that you had to make this terribly hard decision a year ago that you could no longer afford the revenue funding for the parks. And that was really the way we were set up, to try to work with you to find an alternative to the revenue funding that in the past that you were able to put in. It must have been a very, very hard decision for you as members to have decided that because of the needs of the elderly, children, homeless, people in extreme poverty, most vulnerable members, that's your statutory duty. And however committed we all are to parks and green spaces, unfortunately they're not. You've got no statutory obligation to provide those. So that's where we came in at the end of your hard decision, that you wanted to find an alternative. So we had the heavy responsibility and privilege of trying to find that alternative delivery model that you asked the review board to see if we could come up with that. Big challenge, and I think very courageous and radical of you to, in a sense, hand over that responsibility to us, to try to find a model that would work for you. And I want to thank you all very much for the openness of your approach to this. You gave us complete freedom to go where we wanted to go, to do a lot of research, paper research, presentations from experts, and you enabled us to visit many places around the country which have a national reputation for the quality of their work and their parks, like Milton Keynes, for example. So we had the freedom to visit, to research. We were able to test our ideas. And again, we're grateful we had the opportunity to test our ideas with the residents of Knowsley. We were delighted when the majority of residents, 6 out of 10, supported the proposal that we put to them at the end of the day. You gave us that opportunity for really speaking to people in Knowsley, and have focus groups and smaller groups of colleagues to discuss our ideas with them. And if you have the chance to look through the appendices, you'll see, I think, a very transparent journey that we went on. The log of all the meetings that we took, that we had, the debates that we had, the visits that we took, the market research that we did, the sample survey and so on, it's all there. And during that process, it really led to a place that I don't think we knew we were going to end up in. But we came, at the end of the day, unanimously, and this was a range of colleagues involved in this process, from different backgrounds, perspectives, orientation, responsibilities. We did come to the unanimous conclusion that there seemed to be only one plausible, viable, financially robust solution to dealing with the problem that you're facing. And the solution is pretty radical in the sense that no other authority in the country has come up, if you decide, and we'll see what you decide, has come up with the idea of transferring all the parks together into a charitable trust. And that's one of the first key recommendations that we came up. Again, after a lot of research, we found that a charitable trust, not for profit, keeping the parks totally free and accessible, could be a very successful model. And we talked to people in the National Trust, the Wildlife Trust, the Land Trust, and so on, many others, that you can have a perfectly robust, progressive, imaginative trust that is going to take forward the great assets that you have in Knowsley. we've seen is perfectly possible if it's well set up, if it's set up with a clear progressive mandate that you could set for that trust, working with the charitable foundations and so on around the country, that a trust could be a very successful model. It would need some expertise, people in governance, in the environment, legal issues and so on. It would need to be very strongly rooted in the local community as well, with a passion of people of Knowsley residents and friends and so forth. But a trust could be set up perfectly safely, perfectly successfully to be entrusted to take forward the great assets that you have. So that's the first key part of our solution, to think about a charitable trust. Second key recommendation, again something that many of us were not really aware of at the beginning of the process, that trust could be set up with an endowment. It could be set up securely, an endowment of about £40 million we suggested. The endowment would be placed in the safekeeping of the trust, and the trust would finance the staffing of the trust. I think this gives a secure future for the staff involved in the process, that the revenue funding would be paid for through the interest from the endowment. And we did some modelling to make clear that this was perfectly reasonable set of assumptions that could ensure that there would be a solid source of income that would keep parks going in perpetuity, to use the jargon sometimes, forever, in terms of safe forever, and there'd be enough secure revenue funding, I think, not just to keep the parks going as they are, but hopefully to make them even better as the years go by. There's even more things that you could do with these great assets that you've got. So that's the second part of the strategy. The third part is to get the endowment. The local authority would need to borrow in order to put that into the endowment pot. And in order to pay back that loan, the council would have, over time, to release up to 10% of the parks and green spaces. Now, we know that's a big ask. It's not something that we want to suggest. It's not something that's easy for yourselves. We didn't get involved in any looking at particular sites, so this is a strategy. But if you can release up to 10% of the sites that you've got, that would save forever the 90%. So the overwhelming majority of the parks and green spaces would be safe, be well funded, pay for the staff, to pay for the upkeep, the maintenance, and hopefully for the improvement as well. So it would be 10% released, not straight away, over a 15-year period, gradual process. In the meanwhile, the trust would be established and get on with supporting and developing the 90%. The other suggestion we made, we gave some suggested criteria so that for yourselves, if you were to agree this, to identify the 10%, a mix of trying to maintain the most popular, the best used park, with the greatest assets and used and loved by the community, and balance that with the need to find some resources to release and to balance, to make that balance. That's what we suggested, part of the criteria. And I think the fifth key recommendation, which our members were very keen to stress, is that the trust would be in no way in somehow opposition to friends groups, to the community. The trust would be there to support the community, as well as the staff, as well as the local authority, so that the engagement of friends groups, the community, the workforce, all of that is absolutely crucial to the vision, progressive vision of what the trust could do for the people of Knowsley. So that was another important recommendation. So that was the suggestion. We agreed those unanimously at the end of the day. We felt we could not find another option. We started off with 8 or 9 different options and models for possible funding of parks. We went through them all rigorously and robustly, and you'll see it in there. But really, at the end of the day, we found this was the only viable safe, positive solution, and it can be a very exciting solution. The Trust could operate creatively and imaginatively, working with yourselves, but independent from yourselves, but with a close link, hopefully. And this could provide a safe future, a good future for the great parks and green spaces in Knowsley, to improve the health and well-being of the residents, to improve the reputation still of Knowsley. We hear about Shakespeare in the North, the greenest borough in the country with the best parks and green spaces. In my view, would be another strand of attraction for Knowsley, to bring more visitors, more business, more investment, sense of place, as well as providing terrific facilities and resources for the people of Knowsley. So I think, Councillor Moorhead, I think I probably said more than enough. We really recommend this to you as an honest job done to the best of our abilities. And thank you very much on our behalf for giving us the opportunity to work with you and do this work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gideon. Thanks for that comprehensive report back to us all. Eddie, I believe you're going to respond on the Cabinet's behalf.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Gideon, on behalf of the Cabinet, can I first of all thank you very much for your presentation and for your excellent leadership of the Knowsley Parks and Green Spaces Review Board. Your board has provided the Council with a robust, comprehensive and highly credible review that identifies a tangible way to sustain forever the wide-ranging benefits of our parks and green spaces for us all. Indeed, your report provides a greater insight into the new future of funding and managing of public parks, which I'm sure will be of great interest on the national level. Your review board has indeed responded positively to the Council's resolution to protect the future of our parks. I know that at times it has been hard and difficult for all the board. However, their determination, independence and open-mindedness in the way in which they have made the contributions to the review has been exemplary. The Council thank them very much for a fantastic job well done and the efforts. Thank you. The Council has considered the Review Board's recommendations and the draft response that provided in Appendix B to this report. The response very much supports all of the Board's proposals. They explain the reasons for our replies and establish how the Council will take them forward. Excuse me. However, I want to make it absolutely clear that this Council has been forced into making a decision as a result of the impact on Knowsley of the savage budget cuts inflicted by the Conservative and Liberal Democrat coalition and the Conservative government since 2010. The influence of the government policy that local authorities should divert their funding away from non-statutory services, including maintenance in parks and open spaces, which are highly valued by our communities. This Council absolutely refuses to accept the government policy, and instead we agree with the Cabinet response as proposed in Appendix B. And specifically, I wish to emphasise that this Cabinet highly values the vital role that the parks and green spaces have in helping our community to be safer, healthier and happier. It seeks an holistic solution that sustains and, where possible, enhances the value of Knowsley's varied network of parks, green spaces. It is delighted that 96% of the respondents to the Board's survey believe that the parks make Knowsley a more attractive place to live, work or visit. Acknowledge that the Independent Charitable Parks Trust are the predominant alternative governance and management organisation for public parks that are not under the direct control of local authorities. Accept the logic of the surrender of 10% of parks to create an endowment to protect 90% of our parks and green spaces, which will be maintained from the return of the endowment investment. Agree that the Council should use the evidence-based method to identify the parklands for sale and that the process should be transparent. Acknowledge that the research that the review board has conducted has been at a strategic and in-principle level. I am absolutely confident that these set of recommendations will protect our special places for the future from savage cuts that this government may make to our budget. This has been a difficult yet brave decision to create a new future for our parks and green spaces, as we are willing to guarantee that they will be available for the future generations to enjoy. Finally, the consultation told us that residents highly value the green flag parks and that they wanted to know as soon as possible which parks will be protected forever. I have therefore ensured officers have applied the board site selection criteria to identify these parks and green spaces which will be surrendered to protect the 90%. I am therefore tabling this resolution. Okay? Okay. This resolution ensures that all of our green flag parks are protected from the loss of their national status, whilst at the same time publish the names of the 17 sites which have been surrendered to create an endowment which will, and I should emphasise at this point, result in 144 of our parks being open spaces being protected forever. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eddie. Before we put the recommendations, members, any comments or questions? Mike?
Yeah, can I make comments? It's probably the same what's already been said, but thank you very much for the proposal that's come forward, and a radical proposal, as Gideon said, from an independent board, which should be has been very, very well accepted, and as Eddie's pointed out, the amount of people that's responded and the amount of positivity that's come across. And you know, you just got to refer to my statement before, that millions of pounds we're losing by the central government taking off us, and we want to protect certain things, but we've got to be imaginative in the way we involve people and spend the limited resource we've got. And this radical movement helps us to protect, as Eddie said, protect the 18 green flags that we have in the borough, and the 90% of our green area in Nosey Borough. So I think it's as I've said before, an imaginative way forward. We do welcome it, and it is a very hard decision to make. You know, I've listened to some of the negative comments today, but hopefully from tomorrow, the positive side will come out of what we're fought to protect for the future, the past next 15 years, not for perpetuity actually, is for the people in Nosey.
Thanks, Mike. Graham?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. And can I thank Gideon for that excellent presentation and all his team on the hard work that they've done. I appreciate it's a really difficult decision to come to at the end, and I think all of our colleagues in the Labour group agreed that last night. Chair, quite a few years ago I was the portfolio holder who was lucky enough to start the process when we did have some fair funding under a Labour government, to start the process of bringing our parks back to an acceptable condition, and it ended up with all the green flags, and it ended up with people using our parks. It's just a pity now we have to make this decision today, but I'm comforted by the decision, Chair, because I was really worried, because the one asset that we have is the excellent staff that have made our green parks, our parks into green flag status, and the work that they put in. So I'm really assured with the recommendation, and if it goes through, okay, 10% will be lost, but at least it assures the jobs are safe and secure for the hard-working people that work in our parks. Very difficult decision to make, Chair and colleagues, and Gideon's colleagues as well. But we are where we are with the savage funding cuts, and so I'll support the decision on the back of we'll have 9% of our green spaces and parks, and our staff are still in the job.
Thanks very much, Graham. Any other comments? No? If I may again, I'll echo what Graham's just said there. Thanks to Gideon and his team for all the hard work that they've done over the last 8 months or so. It's a shame all people didn't take part in that were given the opportunity to, but we are where we are with that. Today I actually spoke to Steve Rodham, and one of the recommendations are that Gideon takes the report to the Metro Mayor, Steve Rodham. I said Steve was very complimentary of the hard work that's gone, and he's seen the report. He looks forward to giving his feedback on that in the not too distant future. He recognises that as a Labour controlled council we've made a very, very difficult but brave decision. We are going to surrender 10% of our green spaces to develop and keep our remaining 90%. It was a choice none of us wanted to make, but the choice was made for us in the sense of our budget has been slashed by £86 million over the last 7 years or so. So with that, colleagues, you've all got the recommendations. We're reminded to agree the recommendations set out in the paper that Eddie put out a minute or two ago. Great, thank you with that. Thank you very much. Item 5, Children's Services Tripartite Commissioning Agreement with Liverpool City Council and Sefton Council. Joan, I believe you're bringing this to us, pages 69 to 80.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, the report presented today purposes that before services for children are commissioned in the future, the starting point will be for consideration to be given to commissioning jointly on the Sefton, Liverpool and Knowsley footprint, as these authorities have demonstrated an appetite for such an arrangement. The purpose of this is to gain greater control of the market, particularly in relation to care placements, but also in areas where there is jointly agreed priority. There is a natural synergy between the 3 local authorities in the Liverpool City region, Sefton, Liverpool and Knowsley, as they share borders, have similar demographics and commission similar provision. Children's Services Commissioners in the North West have worked collaboratively for some time, particularly in relation to commissioning of residential care and foster care placements. There are other services that could be commissioned on a wider footprint than just Knowsley that could potentially increase efficiency and quality. Services such as for children who go missing, need SEND provisions or exploitation services. The report requests agreement that when Knowsley Commissioning Services are considering a new commission for any children's service, they will look into to ascertain the viability of this initially through a partnership with Liverpool and Sefton Council. Happy to move the recommendations on page 69 of the agenda.
Any questions, observations? That report agreed? Thank you very much. Item 6 then, 2017-18 Revenue Budget Monitoring Mid-Year Update. Gary, I believe you're bringing this to us, pages 81 to 96.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Given there's already been a number of comments with regards to the budget, there's quite an interesting mid-year update with regards to finances within the council. So, colleagues, I know I've mentioned on a couple of occasions where we're making significant improvements in both adults and children's social care. I'm sure Joe and Chris will be able to pick up on those points, but just want to make one point about where we are to date, which is that we have a surplus of £44,000. Now, whilst that isn't a significant amount of money, given the fact that we've already had to save over £80 million and by 2020 we'll have saved over £100 million, having a surplus at this time in the budget is an incredible place to be, not only for us as elected members, but shows the hard work and commitment of the management within senior officers to make sure that we manage this budget really well, given the fact that we are asking many services within this local authority to make savings, whilst service delivery is difficult and service demand is increasing. We're still we still have a surplus of £44,000, which is a great place to be. And given the scale of those cuts that we've had to face, to be in this position, Chair, and I know colleagues will share this, I feel that we're in a good place right now financially to deal with what we've got, but that's not going to carry on forever. So we haven't got the money that we need. We need a lot more money to deliver the services that we've got. We just had an excellent presentation with regards to parks, and we're having to make difficult decisions, and more difficult decisions will come this evening. So to have £44,000 might not sound like a great place to be, but in terms of this budget and where we are halfway through the year, it's a great place to be. I'm not sure if colleagues wanted to pick up on some points which are more relevant to their service areas, Chair.
Could go on, I'll take you first and we'll go down the line.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just what Gary said there, colleagues, could I just draw your attention to 3.4 of the report on pages 84 and 85. It is clear that our ambitious plans for housing development are beginning to deliver. We currently have 37 housing construction sites in Knowsley, which are on target to deliver a further 600 new homes by the end of this financial year. This is not only bringing much needed council tax revenue and new homes bonus, it is generating new jobs, new investments, and indeed new capital receipts that otherwise would not be available had we not taken decisions to accelerate growth within the borough. Our excellent housing and land disposal programme is clear evidence that this council doesn't indeed prioritise developments on brownfield sites, and let me tell you that this is the brownfield sites that are delivering the funding to help protect vulnerable residents while investing in our future. You'll also notice on the report, colleagues, it's the capital receipts from the brownfield land sales that have enabled us to construct a £15 million investment programme to breathe life back into our town centres and accelerate growth in jobs, housing and business across Knowsley. Those brownfield site land sales have also helped to set aside £1.7 million for land assembly to help us further accelerate investment in our town centres. And furthermore, I'm delighted to announce that we are using the income from selling the brownfield sites to invest £10 million to improve the quality of our school playing fields across the borough.
Thank you. Thanks, Graham. Joe?
Yeah, and just in the report, I'd like to highlight the fact that we are seeing real significant progress in reducing the cost of childcare placements, which is a major improvement in comparison to recent years. So happy with that.
Chris?
Thank you, Chair. Adult social care is also working well to deliver significant savings at the same time as managing increasing costs. And while pressures do still remain to be addressed, the service is making good progress. Given the scale of government funding cuts which the Council has had to manage in recent years, it's inevitable becoming harder to identify and deliver savings. So the high degree of successful implementation continues to demonstrate the overall robustness of the Council's approach. The report also notes the good progress in delivering the Council's ambitious programme of investments. Thank you, Chair.
Any further comments or observations, questions? No? Can I move the recommendations down on page 82? That agreed? Okay. Thanks, colleagues. Non-key decisions, item 7, adult social care financial strategy. Again, Gary will bring this to us, pages 97 to 110.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Given that, as Chris has just said, we're managing really well the financial position mid-year within adult social care, we are in a privileged position to be given 3 years one-off funding, and I must stress one-off funding, to provide extra support and much needed financial support to adult social care. This money has been given a number of different titles by central government, so cover it as central government may want to. It's money that they know organisations and council services like ours desperately need, and I think it's had 3 iterations of titles so far, which has got us to £9 million, and we would never say no to that money. So over the next 3 years we're going to use that money to invest in adult social care, to work in a different way, to ensure that adult social care services can maintain the service that's required for residents in its current budget, but more importantly to make investments within that service in new technology to provide adults at home with the needs that they've got at home, to invest in a new IT system that will ensure that the services are delivered to the right people at the right time. And I would like to stress the importance of our colleagues in the CCG who we've worked alongside, because our authority will probably be one of not many authorities in the country that can say we're holding on to pretty much every penny that we're getting off central government to support adult social care at the point that it's needed. Most of the local authorities will be in a position where they're giving that money to the CCG to support in-hospital services, and we're not in that position. So I think our colleagues in the CCG deserve to be thanked for them working alongside us and supporting us. I'm not sure if Chris has anything to add to this report, Chair.
Chris?
Thank you, Chair. I second Councillor C's acknowledgement of the CCG giving up the funding, which has been a really good result for us. The Council is also funding £1.5 million of new investments which will drive improvement and transformation into social care and health services, particularly through the better use of assistive technology, I always say the wrong one, assistive technology, and a new audit social care IT system. While the report shows the progress that the Council is making to address the pressures in adult social care, it remains critical that the Government provides sufficient permanent funding to avoid the pressures in adult social care becoming unsustainable in the future years. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chris. Any further observations or questions? Can we read the recommendations on page 98? Agree? Thanks, colleagues. I'll introduce the next item, but unfortunately members will have to leave the room, including myself. Item 8, adult provider services outline business case. Chris, you're presenting this to the Cabinet. Mike, can you come and take my seat, or do you want to do it from there?
Right, so colleagues, don't we look exposed? Item 8 is the report of the adult provider services, the outline business case, and the purpose of this report is to inform the Cabinet of finding a further examination of 3 potential delivery models for adult provider services. I'll hand over to the portfolio holder. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. This report seeks the Cabinet's approval of adult provider services outline business case. And it is a very lengthy report, so I will just highlight a few points, assuming everybody has read the report. The Cabinet agreed in June this year to a partnership with Sefton Council through the wholly owned company Sefton New Directions as a preferred option for adult provider services. And more recently, Halton Council have agreed to explore the partnership between ourselves and Sefton. Options on page 113. The first option is maintain the existing in-house model. Option 2 is transfer of services to Volair, and option 3 a partnership arrangement with Sefton Council and Halton. The broad terms of the above options can be found on pages 113. We were requested by the unions to explore option 1 to remain the same. See page 114, maintain existing in-house delivery model. As you can see, despite the high quality indicators, the in-house services currently have limited ability to grow or diversify, particularly in the context of required budget savings of 0.548 over the next 2 years. The consequence of a diminishing service offer would limit choice for the individuals in the wider market and prevent Council from meeting its strategic commissioning objectives. We do not wish to see ourselves in the position of managing decline. We have to be proactive. If we are to get the best for our service users and our staff. Service users deserve the best quality of care which can be delivered under the current arrangements, and this will prove to be a very difficult task in the future. We are already underfunded, and we are faced with greater expectations of care as people live longer with more complex needs and require more care. We have to take action now to ensure that we are masters of our own destiny. The partnership with Sefton and Holton will bring economies of scale, ensure better outcomes for our service users, and bring stability to the service. Staff will have a future, one where they will be employed by a good employer. Indeed, we aim to have a minimum acceptable standard across the 3 boroughs. There is no truth in the suggestion that Sefton will not be paying the living wage. Indeed, it is a city region pledge to pay the living wage. The union's stance is to say no to this arrangement, and I believe this to be short-sighted by them, as they're hell-bent on protecting terms and conditions, while we're trying to preserve jobs, real jobs, with better prospects for our staff and service users. The unions will be better placed to assist in this process and not attack Labour-run councils who are suffering from major financial losses while trying to maintain services and a sustainable future for a local government. This is a forward-looking borough, and if we are to survive at all, we need to make some changes to how we are currently working. I too am a member of Unite, however, I'm a Labour councillor first, and I was elected on with my fellow councillors to deliver the best possible outcomes for the residents of this borough. And they stand at currently 146,000 people who rely on our foresight to ensure a secure future for Knowsley and its residents. In conclusion, can I draw your attention to the recommendations on page 112 of the report? Cabinet is recommended to agree the partnership option with Sefton and Holton councils for the future service delivery of adult provider services continues to be the council's preferred option for further exploration at this stage, and 2, request the Assistant Chief Executive to develop a full business case for the preferred option for the future service delivery of adult provider services for the Cabinet in due course. And can I just give you a couple of comments from our partners, the Physical and Sensory Impairment Partnership Board on the 16th of November. One of the comments, Knowsley Council is looking forward at the solutions before the issues come up. The council clearly wants to retain services for local people and should be rewarded and praised for being forward thinking. And another partner, Autism Services Development Group, on the 28th of November. It's a sensible way forward to have 3 local authority footprints to share the cost and provide an individual service such as Liverpool Asperger's service. It's the right thing to do. Thank you, Chair.
Any comments? No. Okay, colleagues, the talk ourselves here. The recommendation on page 112 spells out by the cabinet member, and I'm moving. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Can someone bring the calendar back in again?
Thanks colleagues for that. Item 9 then, 2018-19 performance and budget setting process. Gary, again you're going to bring this to us, pages 143 to 154.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And it might seem strange, colleagues, that we're looking at this, although we've set a 3-year budget, but it is important, obviously, to, on an annual basis, review current processes and developments, and more importantly, to look to see whether our 3-year plan is still going to work in terms of, 1, managing the budget effectively, and more importantly, seeing where demand lies as we go forward. It goes without saying that obviously every year central government funding changes, and all we can do in most occasions is put our finger in the air and hope for the best when it comes to financial settlement from central government. This, colleagues, will be an opportunity for us to, 1, look back over the previous year, and more importantly, make sure that for the next 2 years of our 3-year budget, we still have the right plan in place to manage both the budget and manage demand within service areas. I wouldn't expect it to be any significant changes to that plan that we've set in terms of the 3-year budget, and because that effectively is what underpins the corporate plan and more importantly the budget as it's set for the next 2.5 years now. But it should also reflect on the positive aspects of the programme so far within that year, and we've had a couple of colleagues this evening mention some massive developments within the local authority, and we should take account of that as we do this. And it should also take into account any potential new finances that we may be able to bring into the council's budget, and that will be part of us as a Labour group setting out our next year's 2-year budget as it is as such, because it's the second year of 3. But more importantly, making sure that we put the finances that we've been able to raise in the previous year and the forthcoming years to best use, again, to manage that need and demand as it comes forward. And some of that need and demand is stuff that we can't forecast. Some of it is, and where it is, we're best able to use the finances that we can bring to the local authority and put it where it needs to be. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thanks, Gary. Any questions, observations on that? No? With that then, can we take the recommendation on page 144? Can we agree that recommendation? Thanks, colleagues. I've got no further business. With that, I'll close the meeting, and thanks for everyone for attending, and particularly Gideon and his team.